You thought making more money would fix everything, and for a moment, it did. You remember the feeling, the first time you saw a number in your bank account that once felt impossible, the relief, the quiet confidence, the sense that you had finally crossed some invisible line. But then something happened, or rather, something didn't happen. The feeling faded, and slowly, without you noticing, you were right back to where you started, wanting more, needing more, wondering why more never seems to be enough. So here is the question that nobody talks about honestly. Why does it never feel like enough? And before you answer that with, "Because I don't earn enough yet," stay with me, because that is exactly what you are supposed to think, and it is exactly why the feeling keeps coming back. The answer is not about your income. It is about something much closer to home. Think back to the first time you were really broke, not just low on cash, genuinely stretched. Maybe you were a student, or just starting out, or going through a hard season. You told yourself one thing over and over: if I could just make a little more, everything would be okay. So you worked harder. You figured things out, and eventually things improved. Maybe you went from barely covering rent to having a little left over, and that felt incredible. Genuinely incredible. You could eat out occasionally. You could stop checking your balance before every purchase. You breathed differently. For a few months, life actually felt lighter. But here is what happened next. Gradually, quietly, the new normal settled in. The eating out became regular. The little luxuries became expected. The breathing room became the floor, not the ceiling. And before long, that same feeling returned, the low hum of not quite enough. So you pushed again, earned more, upgraded your life a little, and the cycle repeated. Not once, not twice, but every single time. Does that sound familiar? Because it is not a personal failure. It is not laziness or greed. It is something much more mechanical than that. And once you see it clearly, you cannot unsee it. Here is what most people believe. More money equals more security. More security equals feeling rich. It sounds logical. It feels logical. It is the foundation of every financial goal most people ever set. The problem is that it treats feeling rich like a destination, like a place you arrive at and stay, a fixed point on a map. Earn enough, cross the line, feel good. Simple. But has anyone you know ever actually arrived? Has anyone you respect ever said, "I have enough now. I genuinely feel completely satisfied with what I have"? Not in a spiritual, detached from money kind of way, but practically, daily. In the grocery store, at the dinner table, looking at their life and thinking, "Yes, this is enough. I am done wanting more." It almost never happens. And the question is why? Here is the mechanism nobody explains clearly. As your income rises, your expectations rise with it. But the rise in expectations is invisible. It does not feel like a choice. It does not announce itself. It just happens. When you earned less, a weekend trip felt like a luxury. Now it feels like a basic need. When you earned less, cooking at home every night was normal. Now doing it too often feels like going backward. When you earned less, a used car was completely fine. Now, something about driving the same model feels like it says something about you. None of these upgrades were decisions exactly. They were drifts, small, invisible, relentless drifts. Your definition of normal kept upgrading itself, and here is the part that makes this so difficult to see. Every upgrade felt completely justified, reasonable even, because compared to where you were before, you have earned it, and compared to where you want to be, you are just being realistic. That logic never stops, because there is always somewhere you were before, and there is always somewhere you want to be next. There is a psychological principle called hedonic adaptation. The idea is simple. You get used to everything. Good things, bad things, expensive things, free things. The human brain is a remarkably efficient adaptation machine. It normalizes whatever surrounds it. When you get a raise, you feel it for a few weeks, maybe a couple of months if it is a big one. Then it becomes the new floor. Not because you are ungrateful, not because you are shallow, but because your brain has decided this is now the baseline reality, and it needs to move on to identifying the next gap. And alongside adaptation, there is comparison. You do not measure your financial situation against some absolute number. You measure it against the people around you, your friends, your colleagues, your neighborhood, social media, the invisible peer group that follows you everywhere without ever announcing itself. When everyone around you upgrades, your perception of normal upgrades too. A single dollar, you can feel poorer simply because the reference point shifted. So, your baseline keeps moving. Not because your life is getting worse, but because the measuring stick keeps getting longer. Think of it like a treadmill that automatically speeds up every time you find your rhythm. You are not falling behind. You are actually keeping pace, but it never feels that way. Here is the insight that sits at the center of all of this. You are not chasing more money. You are chasing a feeling, and the feeling keeps moving. Let that settle for a moment. The number in your mind, the salary, the savings goal, the net worth target, that is not really the goal. The goal is what you think that number will feel like when you reach it. Security, ease, pride, freedom, peace, some combination of all of those. But because of adaptation and comparison and the silently upgrading baseline, you reach the number, and the feeling's not quite there yet. So the number moves, and you follow it, and the feeling stays just out of reach. This is not pessimism. This is a pattern, and patterns can be interrupted. Consider two people, same job, same income, same city. The first person earns more and upgrades automatically. Better apartment because it is what people at this income level do. Nicer car because the old one started to feel embarrassing. More expensive holidays because they needed a real break. Every upgrade felt deserved. Every upgrade was logical, and every upgrade quietly raised the floor of what normal meant. A year later, they are making more than they ever imagined, and they feel roughly the same as they did when they were earning half of it. The money is real, the improvement is real, but the feeling of richness is still elusive, still somewhere slightly ahead. The second person earns the same amount, but somewhere along the way they got curious about this pattern. They started noticing the drift. They did not stop growing or spending, but they started making the upgrades consciously. This apartment, yes, because space genuinely matters to me. That car, no, because it is just status, and I do not care enough. This trip, absolutely, because I will remember it forever. They did not deprive themselves. They just stopped letting normal upgrade automatically. And something strange happened. The baseline held. The satisfaction lasted longer. The feeling of having enough showed up more often. Same income, completely different experience of that income. The difference was not discipline, exactly. It was awareness. The willingness to pause and ask, is this an upgrade I actually want? Or is this just the next step on a treadmill I never chose to get on? Here is why so many people never feel satisfied. The goal was never defined. Not really. I want to feel financially secure is not a definition. I want to feel comfortable is not a definition. I want to be rich is definitely not a definition. These are feelings with no address, no arrival point, nothing you can actually reach. So the mind does what it always does with undefined goals. It keeps looking, keeps comparing, keeps finding the gap between where you are and where you imagine you should be. The goal was never clear enough to know when you had reached it, things, and without a clear enough goal, not the chase has no not some radical rejection of money or ambition, something simpler and more sustainable than any of that. It starts with awareness of your baseline, just noticing it. What did normal mean to you 2 years ago? What does it mean today? What upgraded without you actually deciding it should? That question alone is more valuable than most financial advice. Then there is the act of choosing what enough means. Not for your whole life, just for now, just in this season. Maybe enough means a certain savings number. Maybe it means a certain lifestyle that genuinely fits. Maybe it means knowing that the next upgrade you make will be intentional, not automatic. This is not about stopping growth. It is about separating growth from drift. One is a choice. The other is a current you did not notice you were swimming in. And when you make that separation, something shifts. Not dramatically, not overnight, but the satisfaction starts to last a little longer. The comparison loosens its grip a little. The baseline stops silently climbing and starts holding still long enough for you to actually stand on it. You do not stop wanting things. You just get clearer about which wants are actually yours. So let's bring this all the way back. You are not failing to earn enough. You were never really the problem. The problem was a system you did not know you were inside. A treadmill that speeds up on its own. A measuring stick that lengthens every time you reach the end of it. A feeling that moves the moment you get close. And now you can see it. That does not mean the feeling disappears instantly. It does not mean the comparisons stop. It does not mean wanting more is wrong, but it means you now have something that most people never get. A name for what is happening. And once you can name something, you can start to work with it instead of running from it. The money is real. The growth is real. The life you have built is real. The question is whether you are actually living it or whether you are always somewhere just ahead of it, waiting for the number to finally feel like enough. So here is the question to sit with tonight, not to answer immediately, just to hold. What would happen if enough actually stayed enough?